The man was in a coma and a fart machine. He wouldn't stop farting. Watching this, Hank suddenly had a wild idea. He pushed the man into the ocean, then climbed onto his back. And to his shock, the man's farts generated powerful thrust, propelling them forward at 125 miles per hour. After being stranded on a deserted island for a whole month, Hank was finally sailing away on a fart-powered jet ski. It was his first time piloting such advanced technology, so naturally he wasn't very good at it. He slipped and fell into the water, but he climbed back up, reset himself, and took off again, until at last they made it to the shore. Seeing food wrappers scattered on the ground, Hank realized they'd made it back to civilization. The Fart King was still unconscious, but Hank wasn't about to leave him behind. So Hank decided to carry him through the forest, but the non-stop farting was driving him insane. He picked up a wine cork and jammed it into the man's butt. Finally, sweet silence. They found shelter in a cave. Hank was dying of thirst. Suddenly, water kept pouring from the man's mouth. Hank pressed on his chest and the water sprayed out like a fountain. For the first time in days, Hank had something to drink. Then out of nowhere, the unconscious man spoke. Hank freaked out and bolted. He picked up a heavy branch for protection and cautiously approached. The man explained he'd been unconscious for so long that his body couldn't move. Only his voice worked. He didn't even remember who he was. Hank started building little figures out of trash to mimic everyday human life, hoping to jog the man's memory. But nothing worked until the man saw a photo of a sexy woman. His heart rate spiked. That's when Hank realized none of his elaborate efforts could compare to that photo. Still, it was a breakthrough. The man's body started responding again. He could even twitch a little. That night, just as they were settling into sleep, a brown bear suddenly clamped down on Hank's leg. It started dragging him into the forest. Hank was terrified. The man saw what was happening and began dragging himself forward to help. The bear turned its attention to him and slowly approached. In that critical moment, the man threw himself onto the campfire and yanked out the cork. Fart met flame. Boom! The explosion sent the bear running in terror. They had just barely survived. Now Hank was injured, and it was the man's turn to drag him forward. Eventually, they made it out of the forest and Hank was rescued. But then the police gave him shocking news. The man had actually been dead all along. They believed everything Hank experienced was just a delusion. They tried to take him away, but Hank refused to believe it. He grabbed the man and dragged him toward the ocean. Cops and reporters swarmed the scene. Hank tried to prove the man was alive, but he didn't move an inch. For the first time, Hank started to doubt himself. Maybe it really was all in his head. Just as the handcuffs snapped shut around his wrists, the man began to vibrate. Everyone stood there, stunned, watching his body twitch uncontrollably. Only Hank knew what was really happening. The fart engine was starting up. A second later, the man blasted into the ocean at 125 miles per hour, right in front of everyone. He lifted his head and looked back at Hank as if saying goodbye.